Lots to be talked about when it comes to trade season around the NBA. Now, we're reportedly hearing reports that the Los Angeles Clippers have joined a list of teams that are interested in trading for Coby White. We're going to discuss that, talk about the game last night, and talk about if Montes Buzelis is trending in the right direction. Y'all know we're going to talk about it, break it all down, but you got to hear the music first.
Cognac, gang.
Shy Boys Podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on today's daily episode. So if you're tuned in, like talking Bulls basketball, make sure you go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Now, before we get into the trade talk surrounding Coby White, just wanted to touch briefly on last night's game. Since me and C-Dub wasn't able to come online, I had some things going on. C-Dub had something that came up that he had to take care of. So we apologize on that front, but we'll be locked in and loaded later today for the Miami Heat game. But last night, the Chicago Bulls, they lost to the Detroit Pistons 108-93. It wasn't really necessarily a great performance in that second half from the Chicago Bulls. Some notable performances that I noticed was Montes Buzelis, Nikola Vucevic had a solid day, and Ayo Dosunmu led all scorers for the Chicago Bulls. And one thing that got on my nerves is Isaiah Stewart, career high 31 points over the Chicago Bulls. What else is new? This is what this team allows everyone to do. We come in, we discover new players, we figure out who now is making a name for themselves around the NBA. But hey, it is what it is. What more to expect? I guess, right? But let's talk about the fun stuff now. Now, it is being reported from Brett Siegel from Clutch Points, that the Los Angeles Clippers are now interested in trading for Coby White. They will now join a number of teams, at least in the Western Conference, that have shown interest in Coby White. Those teams include the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Dallas Mavericks, alongside with the Los Angeles Clippers. Brett Siegel went on to say this: White is in the final year of his contract and will be an unrestricted free agent in the offseason. The Bulls continue to field calls from numerous teams interested in White. The Timberwolves, Dallas Mavericks, and Los Angeles Clippers are among several teams from the Western Conference interested in the Bulls guard, sources said. Now, the way that I look at it, the way that you look at the Chicago Bulls team is what I keep continuously saying, that you have to evaluate everything. You have to look at everything, not only for the remainder of this season, but how do you want to look moving forward as the Chicago Bulls team? Do you want to go out there and, give out contracts for a team that has been play inbound? Or do you want to take a couple steps back just to take a couple steps forward and then potentially give yourself an opportunity to make moves for said players later down the road? I look at an example that happened and transpired yesterday. The Washington Wizards, they took a couple steps back. They look like they have some young pieces that are starting to blossom within their own organization. And then you get to trade for a young player in Trae Young. Whether we believe he's a winning player or not, that's still a player that comes in with a lot of talent that can help your team. And then you look at the value of said player. They traded him for CJ McCollum and Kisper. I hope I'm saying his name right. And they didn't have to give up any draft picks. There were no draft picks exchanged between those two franchises. And this is why it's an opportunity to really, really evaluate this, because I guarantee the Chicago Bulls, if they do pull the trigger on a trade for Coby White, you will be able to garner some type of draft capital. Well, may not be something like what we seen with Desmond Bane over the offseason when the Orlando Magic got over 3 draft picks. I believe it was 4. And, we look at that and we can say, hey, Coby White right now, young talented player on an expiring contract, maybe don't have to disperse out much money to give to him. Excuse me. After the offseason, who knows? But while the iron is hot and while the value of said player is high, you should not settle. That's what it really comes down to. You should not settle and allow guys to walk out because, again, he will be an unrestricted free agent. So he could force the Chicago Bulls to get in a bidding war because they don't have that restriction that they had on players like Josh Giddey. I'm not saying you absolutely have to trade Coby White, but I'm saying that if a offer comes across your table that is best for the organization now and moving forward, you should absolutely consider it. You should absolutely consider it because for the last few seasons, we witnessed the Chicago Bulls just be play-in bound and not necessarily live up to the we're going to be competitive talk. Because if you're talking about competitiveness, the play-in wasn't even a thing a few years ago. So if in reality, if we remove that, and I know that's kind of speaking in hyperbole because it is a thing now, the Bulls wouldn't even have made the playoffs the last few seasons. So I look at that type of stuff and say, this is not really a good team going in a good direction right now. And you have not only Coby White, even though this is the main premise, you have a number of other expiring contracts that you have to handle as well, and that you can utilize in trades to garner more assets and players. So you absolutely have to evaluate this stuff. I'm not shocked that the Los Angeles Clippers are interested, but my only question is, what would a deal look like? That will be up to the faces of the Chicago Bulls and the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, when we look at situations like in the past or certain rumors, we've seen the Minnesota Timberwolves, another team mentioned, come across the table with Dante DiVincenzo, Terrence Shannon Jr., and a first round pick. That looks like a deal that you can absolutely execute that helps the Chicago Bulls in the backcourt with a guard like Dante DiVincenzo. And you know that he can come off the bench for you. You have Trey Jones already in place. Terrence Shannon Jr. gives you some wing depth, and then you can utilize a first round pick in addition to the first round pick you have in this draft to add more talent. Those are some things that you have to do, and you have to start stacking these assets and stacking players the right way if you want to become an Oklahoma City Thunder, if you want to become a Detroit Pistons team, if you want to become a young Orlando team or something like that. You have to put yourself in positions to take as many bites at the apple as possible to get the right players in the building so we can see a good basketball team. So though we know that these rumors are going to continue to go, we don't necessarily know what is going to happen. There's not a lot of people that believes in this front office, but you absolutely have to utilize this time to make up for past mistakes if you are Arturas and Mark Eversley. I know there is still an issue with Billy Donovan as well, but he's here to stay. But the front office guys are here to stay. Hopefully, these guys learn from mistakes in the past. One example of them kind of learning from mistakes in the past is how negotiations went with Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey wanted $30 million. The Bulls came in at 20, then 22, and ultimately ended up at 25. But you did not ultimately jump the gun like you did with a move when you signed Patrick Williams for $18 million. So has this front office really learned from their mistakes? We shall see, because that is not the only example of when this front office made some mistakes. What about when guys came calling for Andre Drummond and he was on an expiring contract and you could have had 2 second-round picks to add additional young talent that you could have had on your G League program or could have potentially made the team? Or if not, you wipe your hands with it. At least you don't allow Andre Drummond to walk away for nothing. So these are decisions that you absolutely have to make. These are decisions that you absolutely have to sit down at the table and say, hey, Coby White could potentially walk away from us. Do we want to enter another situation to where a player walks away from us and we get nothing in return? Those are legitimate things. And we have to also take into account Coby White has been dealing with the calf injury all season long. Now, I know there's going to be some people that say, hey, well, this is kind of like the first time with him dealing with those calf injuries. He played pretty damn well last season, but there's times that, whatever. Those things happen. Sometimes it lingers. Sometimes it's just one season and then guys get better. But those are legitimate things that you have to think about. Knock on wood, we don't want anything catastrophic to happen to Coby White. But this is a sport. This is a physical game that requires players to run up and down the court and do a number of things offensively and defensively. So that has to be on your mind. Take advantage while the value is high, because you missed out on opportunities when the value was high with Zach LaVine. Fans will appreciate a team choosing a direction and saying, hey, y'all, we're going to take a couple steps back so we can eventually take steps forward. That's the way that is. The fans will appreciate that. And if you go out there and have a bunch of young guys who we see are developing and they are competing, yeah, we're going to be pissed off at the losses. But one thing that's going to keep Chicago interested in the basketball team is guys competing. Montes Buzel is developing. Other guys, if you bring them in and see if they can contribute to a basketball game. So we'll see what happens with that. And y'all let me know what y'all think. But hey, now we move on to talk about Montes Buzelis. Montes Buzelis has been really coming into his own. Started off well, then kind of teetered off a little bit. Why the Chicago Bulls were trying to fix things and guys were, when guys were, getting reintegrated with the Chicago Bulls lineup. But in my opinion, Montes Buzelis is trending in the right direction. Montes Buzelis, for me, has looked like a comfortable basketball player. Montes Buzelis has been doing very, very well for the Chicago Bulls the last few games. I think he has 20 points in the last 3 games, and like the 10th time in the last few, he's notched double digits. And he looks comfortable out there. He's shooting the 3 ball pretty damn well. He's, throwing down the dunks every single game. He can go out there and potentially grab a poster. One thing I want to continue to see from Montes Buzelis is him to work on his defense. And that is something that we want to see. So he has to be a lot better in that regard. And then we'll keep it moving. And I have the actual stat right here. This is the 9th time in 10 games that Montes Buzelis has reached double figures in the second 20-point game in his last 3 games. So if you look at all that, you say, hey, this guy's moving pretty damn well. And it goes back to the original topic. Montes Buzelis is looking a lot better with guys absent. Not saying it's just Coby White. Not saying it's just Josh Giddey. But there's a way that you have to figure out how do you get the best out of the young players and figure things out. Now, there's other key factors in this as well. When Montes Buzelis was next to Jalen Smith, he looked a lot better in that regard too. There is not one solution. You know what I'm saying? There's a number of ways that the Chicago Bulls can go about this, but you have to make decisions. That's what it is at the end of the day. Decisions have to be made to say, hey, we got to do what's best for the organization. It's not about who we like anymore. It's not. So that's what we have to do. And in fact, for Montes Buzelis, since December 1st, Buzelis lead all second-year players in total points with 269 and ranked second in total blocks with 20. That is via Bulls PR. So Montes Buzelis is doing his thing. You want Montes Buzelis to continue to do his thing. So decisions have to be made. I'm leaning on the side of it's only 2 guys untouchable. I'm going to keep saying it. It's only 2 guys untouchable with a possibility of being one more guy. The 2 guys that's untouchable is Montes Buzelis himself and Josh Giddey because he just signed a long-term deal. The guy that you have to really, really sit down and think about is Ayo Dosunmu because I think as a 6-man off the bench, he can do whatever you want him to do. And he has shown that he can be reliable when you need him the most. That's just how I look at it. But hey, that is it for me today, y'all. I appreciate y'all for tuning in to another episode of Shy Boys Podcast. Before y'all get up out of here, let me know your thoughts down below. The interest in Coby White being traded to the Los Angeles Clippers, or them calling about Coby White. And then Montes Buzelis, do you feel like he's trending in the right direction? Because I absolutely feel like he is, and I can't wait to see how he continues to grow. And I think in a couple games, we have Montes Buzelis versus Cooper Flag, which is going to be fun to see. I'm going to be interested in that. But hey, thank y'all so much. Appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all always see red. Y'all already know. I'm going to catch y'all on the next one for sure. Peace.
Cognac. Gang.